What's up, guys? Iceman here. Welcome to Chilling Tales. So Donna was a beautiful old lady. She was about 72 years of age when she witnessed the bear attack that went on in her yard. These two bears were fighting each other. Alright. Now this lady had a reputation of feeding the damn things, and she was told by both neighbors and authorities to stop. But there was this situation in her yard where 2 or 3 different black bears, most likely males, started going at it. And Donna tried to go outside to save the day. Now, fortunately, her porch had a sort of wire fencing around it, but unfortunately it was cheap wire. It was a very rigged mess. Definitely not bear-proof. She put this up because she rented part of her house to a young woman who had 2 children. And the bears just kept showing up because this old broad just kept feeding them. But at the time of the attack, the woman who was renting the room in her house moved out. The children were no longer there. It was just Donna. But the fence was still up. So Donna was on the phone with a friend of hers. It was about 9 p.m., not far from the Smoky Mountains. Her property was beautiful. Lush forest and trees, the chirping of birds, pileated woodpeckers, and so forth, just seen all over the frickin' place. Rabbits, squirrels, red squirrels, raccoons. Donna loved her life, and she loved nature. Perhaps too much. Perhaps to her detriment. So she got off the phone with her friend after she heard the ruckus going on outside her cabin. She cared for these bears. Again, she was told not to feed them. In fact, it came to the point where authorities notified her that if a bear is spotted eating anything on her property, they're going to euthanize it because they were becoming a danger not only to Donna, but to her neighbors alike. That's just the problem with feeding animals like this. They become more and more tame, and they started going through the garbage cans and dumpsters over neighbors. And when an animal like a black bear becomes more tame, they tend to become more aggressive toward people and almost see them in some ways as their competitors, and in some instances, granted rare instances, they'll even see them as prey. Now, I don't think that's what happened in this situation, because what happened is Donna got off the phone with her friend. She could hear these 2 male bears fighting, which was often something that would go on. The problem is when you're feeding bears, especially black bears, they're very opportunistic, which is why they're often seen going through garbages and all that. But they started to realize that Donna's front yard and porch was a food source. So at one point even, there were reportedly 14 black bears in her front yard one fine fall evening. And it's unnatural for them to congregate in such a small area, which I think is what stirred up these fights. You see, the black bears, they're not generally in one another's vicinities to such an extreme extent, you know what I'm saying? Food's often scarce in the wild, and it's well, it's not scarce, but it's abundant during the prime seasons of feeding. So it's all over the freaking place. So they don't have to congregate in one tight little area. But when you put berries and dog food out, which is what she used, tuna fish, various fruits, they're gonna smell that from a ways away, and they got familiar. This was going on for years. So she's on the phone with her friend. This was the last time anyone heard her voice. She said, "I have to go. The bears are getting into a ruckus with one another," so she hung up. She walked over to her porch, and she looked out, and she could see this bear with these scuffs along its face. It was bleeding. Big old scathe, like it was clawed by another bear. I believe it had some damage to its eye. I mean, naturally, you're going to feel bad for the thing. Donna begins to tend to it. She opens up the little bit of fencing and peers out into the darkness. I mean, it was dusk, it wasn't that dark, but it was getting there. And this bear, of course, sticks its massive skull up through the little hole in the fence. You could see the size of its snout. Black bears have large skulls, and people underestimate them. I mean, that's why I talk about them on this channel the way that I do. People need to be more bear aware, especially for black bears, because they're often seen as the lesser of the bears, the cute, cuddly ones, right? But no. They're several times stronger than your strongest man, all right? Long, sharp, yellow claws. Big, sharp, bacteria-ridden fangs. I'm not trying to get too animated with it, but I'm just saying they're formidable, all right? And they're opportunistic. So this damn thing had its massive skull peering, and I don't hate black bears, all right? I don't mean to talk about them like that. In fact, I'm quite fond of bears, but they need to be respected. They need to be understood, which is why I have this channel. I'm fascinated by the creatures. In fact, I intend to go to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan sometime in the near future. I'll be posting some videos on my Patreon. All right, so if you guys want to see those videos, join my Patreon. Linked in the description below, and that's how you support the videos, so thank you for your support. And I will be posting some fan stuff on my patrons shortly here. I have these little bear figures and just other things about myself. I don't know if you guys are interested, but nonetheless, thank you for your support. But obviously, I like bears, but they have to be respected. I've had a few instances with bears myself, but I'm not going to go into them on this video. I'll save that for another day. But this massive skull was peering through, and it had the gashes over its eyeballs. Its nose was bleeding. They get aggressive with each other. I've seen videos on YouTube where black bears, they'll feed, and they'll get closer and closer. They'll kind of curl up like cats. Like they'll hunch their back up like that. And like they'll keep their head low, which is what you got to be careful of. Generally, when a bear charges you, if it's a bluff charge, its ears will be up like this. And its head will be up. And it'll run, and then the last second it'll dodge away. But if it's not a bluff charge, if it's predatory, it generally has its ears down like this. And its back arched, like, and sometimes swaying its head. So they'll be feeding, another bear was next to it, and all of a sudden it curled up. I've seen videos like this, and the bear just lunges at it, and they're really strong, which just makes me all the more concerned for this old lady. I don't mean to be rude, but Donna was a bit senile. The people who were close to her said and claimed to the media after this horrific incident that Donna, to an extent, was losing it, all right, mentally and physically. She would haul these bags up to her porch of food and grain for the bears, and they were so heavy that she had to devise a pulley system to get these sacks up onto her porch. But She began feeding this bear with her hands. Poor bear, poor baby, you're so beautiful. I love you. The words she was known to utter to these animals. Now it's unclear as to which bear actually pulled Donna out of that fencing and began mauling her, but what happened after is even worse. But one of the bears, it was either the perpetrator or the victim. I don't really know, it's unclear. While Donna was feeding this thing by hand, one of the bears grabbed onto her arm and pulled her through the fence just partly, and it clamped down and began digging into her upper body region, and it grabbed her by her skull, just around her face, and it had its underjaw right there under her chin, and its fang was close to her eye socket. It grabbed on, and it pulled and pulled at this lady, just crushing part of her jaw. And of course, at this time, Donna was bleeding profusely, and I suspect she realized her mistake of trusting these things to such an extent, which is crazy because she even made it known to the people who would live in her house, because she rented out her house a few times, just a room. She still lived there, and when the attack happened, of course, she was there by herself. But one of her previous renters notified the media that Donna even claimed herself that if she had to go, something along the lines of how she'd rather go at the paw of a bear. I don't know, it's like, I don't think she wanted to be attacked. I think that she wanted to live forever. But the probability of things, this was almost inevitable, the way that she was dealing with these animals. So the bear, it had its teeth around her jaw and her face, and it dug into her shoulder, and it was pulling her through the fencing. And this fencing was sharp metal. It was like chicken fence. It wasn't designed to keep a bear out, all right? I don't know the details on who gave her the advice on why do you got to make the fence the way that you've made it, or how do you make this thing bear-proof? I don't know. I think she just wanted to have some assurance for her renters that they're not going to get in. What happened then was, after it had her through the hole in the fence that she had to feed the bears, it almost physically neutralized her at that point. She was a feeble old woman, but it somehow dug its way under the fence between the wooden porch floor, and it grabbed her by her ankle, and it just began pulling her through it. And it just shredded the hell out of her skin, just cuts and lacerations all over the place, but it managed to pull her through the fence. And then, of course, it just began digging into the woman. I don't know if this was the same bear that she was feeding or not. Or did the other one see the commotion? And it's like, oh, that's the bear that I just hurt, and now this old lady's feeding it. I'm going to come in there and I'm going to unalive her, if you will. I don't know if that's what its intent was, but it was probably looking for an easy meal. So Donna's body was in her front yard, in front of her porch, and this bear was digging into her. And then it began dragging her through the dirt over to the edge of the yard where the thicket and brush was. And somewhere in that mess is where Donna died. Now, one of the most concerning things about black bears is, again, how they are predatory in nature. And often when they're predatorily attacking a human, or other prey for that matter, they'll just start eating you while you're still alive. And I speculate from the research that I've done on this attack, that's kind of what happened with Donna. Now, she had a repairman of some sort who was scheduled to come over the next day to work on her furnace or something. I don't really know. But this guy shows up, he's knocking on the door, she's not answering, and he notices blood all over the deck. And then he notices the wire all destroyed. It was a hideous scene. And he started following the trail, and he knew something was up. So he called authorities, and they made their way over to the scene. And of course, not far into the thicket, they discovered Donna's mangled carcass. And to my understanding, this bear defecated and everything else all over that mess. It cached her body away, saving the rest for later, or maybe just leaving the parts that it didn't like. So nonetheless, 2 bears were shot after this incident. It was uncertain as to which one attacked Donna, but that's why it's a bad idea to feed these things, all right? They're beautiful things and fascinating creatures, but they should be observed from a distance. But nonetheless, if you guys will like this video, subscribe to the page, pull that bell so you're notified next time I post a video, and let me know in the comments your thoughts on this attack. I appreciate you guys and gals, and I'll see you soon with more chilling tales from the Iceman.